Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're cracking open a really ancient story, but we're looking for practical wisdom, stuff that's incredibly relevant for, well, for right now. Resilience, loss, restoration, all from the Book of Job. Our main source here is this book, Restored, Practical Tips for the Modern World from the Book of Job by Reuben Juma Onunga. And what I find interesting is, he's an engineer, he's also a speaker and writer, and he says he wrote this directly from his own experience, walking through, quote, emotional valleys in the silence of unanswered questions. That engineering angle, it feels different.
It really does. It grounds it somehow. And the book's mission, well, it speaks directly to anyone going through grief or confusion, maybe a big life change. Onunga's point is that real restoration isn't about getting your old life back or your thing. Not really. It's about getting yourself back. That's the core. And that leads to, deeper spiritual life, finding purpose again, getting clarity. It's like a road map for your insides, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and that sets up this tension, doesn't it? Because, our world is so focused on winning, on getting more, controlling outcomes. What happens when loss just levels everything? What does this ancient wisdom, through Onunga's lens, tell us to do? We're going to unpack why suffering might happen, at least according to this view, and how you move from being totally shattered to genuinely restored. Okay, let's dive in.
Okay, so we have to start right at the beginning, chapter 1. And it hits you with probably the most unsettling idea right away, Job's suffering. It didn't start because he messed up or sinned. It started because he was righteous. The text says he was blameless and upright, a man who feared God and shunned evil.
Right. That's the immediate aha moment, isn't it? It just shatters that easy cause and effect idea we all kind of carry around. Be good, get good things.
Yeah.
But here, the source is clear. Job's goodness actually brought him onto the radar, which sort of allowed the trial. So trials aren't always punishment. They can be, what's the phrase? A refining fire.
Exactly. And if you think about that bigger picture, it changes how you see hardship. If you're someone who tries hard, does the right thing, well, the source suggests your integrity doesn't buy you immunity. It might even invite a kind of testing.
And then chapter 2 really hammers home the scale of the loss. It wasn't slow. It was bam, everything. Lost his wealth, his workers, all his kids, and then his health, all practically overnight. The stuff he lost was huge, sure, but the deeper thing was his whole understanding of the world just collapsed. The rules didn't work anymore.
Yeah, the shattering of expectations, that's huge. And yet his first reaction, it's almost unbelievable. So much faith. He actually says, the Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Now, that's not denial, right? The book frames it as showing that deep faith doesn't stop the pain. It doesn't erase the loss. It's the foundation that holds you through it.
But that kind of initial strength, that stoicism, it can't hold forever under that pressure. And that leads straight into chapter 3, this internal wrestling. After the shock wears off, Job doesn't just stay quiet. He breaks his silence, but not with more faith statements. It's just raw despair.
Yeah.
He curses the day he was born. He asks, why didn't I just die at birth? It's brutal.
And Onunga's take on this is fascinating. He argues this isn't faithlessness, not at all. It's the sound of a deeply wounded person being completely honest. This raw outpouring, which the book calls lament, basically, honest, sometimes angry conversations with God, is actually presented as a deeper kind of faith. It's a faith that trusts God enough to hear the absolute worst, the doubt, the despair, without turning away.
That feels like such a crucial distinction, especially today, right?
Yep.
We often feel this pressure to be positive, to keep it together. So is this ancient idea of lament basically permission? Permission to be angry, to grieve fully, to be messy, without worrying that your honesty somehow cancels out your faith.
That's exactly it. It prioritizes the relationship, the trust, over just performing perfectly. But then this internal struggle bumps right up against external failure in chapter 4. His friends arrive. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar.
They start off okay, don't they? They sit with him, totally silent for 7 whole days. That seems right. But the second they open their mouths, it's a disaster. They just jump straight to this narrow judgmental theology. They basically assume, why, Job? You must have really messed up secretly for all this bad stuff to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And their failure is such a mirror for how we often fail others in pain today. They offered logic, or what they thought was logic, and these rigid doctrines, cliches really. What Job needed was love, presence. Instead, he got judged. And that just highlights this awful loneliness when your suffering is misunderstood, even by people who are supposed to care.
You see that all the time now, right? That sort of toxic positivity or the quick fix advice. Just think positive. Have you tried yoga? The source here seems to be saying sometimes the most helpful, maybe the holiest thing you can do for someone hurting is just shut up and stay close. Don't analyze, don't fix. just be there.
Well said. And Job, he's dealing with their bad advice and he's dealing with God's silence. That's chapter 6. That feeling that your prayers are hitting the ceiling, that waiting room feeling. Onunga frames this not as God ignoring him, but as a kind of divine invitation to deeper trust. It's that point where faith has to shift from being like transactional, I do good, I get good, to being purely relational, trusting even without answers.
So Job's there, suffering physically, emotionally attacked by his friends and getting nothing from God. Silence. The question becomes, is God still worthy of trust even when he's completely silent? And that leads to that huge turning point in chapter 7. God finally speaks, but he comes.
Yes, a whirlwind. And here's the kicker. He does not explain the suffering, not at all. God doesn't give Job a memo outlining the why. Instead, he asks Job these staggering questions about creation, about power, about wisdom, things like, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? It completely shifts the focus.
Okay, that's the core insight, isn't it? The big switch for anyone listening. God gives Job perspective awe, majesty, instead of the explanations Job thought he needed. Healing wasn't found in understanding the reason for the loss. It was found in grasping the sheer scale and sovereignty of God himself. The book suggests the goal isn't control or having all the answers. It's reverence.
Absolutely. Reverence. And that reverence is what leads directly to the internal turning point in chapter 8. Before anything external changes for Job, he changes inside. He lets go of his demands, his need to be right, and he has this profound realization. He says, my ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you.
That feels like the ultimate restoration right there.
Yeah.
Seeing differently. He stops focusing on what I lost and starts focusing on who God is. So true restoration, according to this, it starts inside. Restoring your faith, your perspective, finding peace before the external circumstances necessarily change. He chooses to trust God's character even without getting God's explanation.
Exactly. And that internal shift, that new sight, it immediately sets up the final, really critical step in chapter 9. It's what Onunga calls Job's ministry of intercession. God tells Job, okay, now pray for those friends, the ones who completely misjudged you and kicked you when you were down. It's an act of choosing freedom, really, over holding on to that hurt.
Okay, but why that act? Why is praying for the people who wronged him the key that unlocks everything else?
Well, what's fascinating is the direct link the scripture makes. It says, the very moment Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Onunga really connects these dots. He suggests that personal healing, maybe even the release of blessing, is often tied to our willingness to choose forgiveness and even service instead of staying stuck in resentment. Job basically transforms his own pain into purpose by serving the very people who added to his pain. It's powerful.
Wow, that shift from pain to purpose.
Yeah.
That leads us right into the final chapter the book covers, chapter 10, Living Restored. And the book is careful here, right? It's not just hitting a reset, going back to how things were. It's about moving forward into a deeper spiritual maturity. Job is fundamentally transformed, not just, given stuff back.
Yes. Transformed is the key word. And this restored life has qualities we can actually aim for today. First, Onunga highlights humility. Job doesn't become arrogant, even though he was vindicated. He stays reverent. He recognizes how vast God is in his own place. Compassion wins over, I told you so. Second, there's wisdom. Job gained insights through suffering that prosperity just couldn't teach him. He starts measuring life differently, maybe more by what he gives, like his testimony, his prayers for others, not just by what he gets.
And the third quality.
Purpose.
Yeah.
His whole life becomes this incredible testimony. He goes from being the guy literally sitting in ashes broken to being the example for anyone else facing devastation. Restored people, the book argues, they become restoring people. They use their healing to help others heal.
So the final practical takeaway for you listening, it seems to be that restoration involves these active choices. Choosing faith when you feel frustrated. Choosing humility instead of demanding your rights. Choosing purpose over dwelling only on the pain.
That's it. And the profound shift, the real core of it, is that Job knew about God before all this happened. But after the storm, he knew God. Personally. Intimately. That deeper connection, that intimacy, that's the ultimate restoration, the kind that can't be taken away again.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, something to maybe chew on.
Yeah.
If the pain or the hardship you're facing right now isn't just random, isn't wasted, then what specific mission might you be being commissioned into because of it? How could your own brokenness, once it starts healing, actually become a bridge for someone else?
Just keep walking. The story of Job isn't just history. It's like a living blueprint showing that God is still in the business of putting broken things back together, offering strength, grace, and Yeah, even purpose, right in the middle of whatever season you're in. Your story isn't over.